Hello, class. We're going to start here. I'm going to do a recording of Chapter 14, which is the end of life, death, dying, grief, and loss. This is for week 2. I know I'm probably a little late getting this out, but I will get this one done, and then I will post another recording for Chapter 59 for week 3. Just a reminder, you guys do have a quiz in Nursing 401 over chapters 103 and chapter 1 out of the ATI book, which I will open that quiz on Monday. I'll send you guys a detailed email of how I'm going to work that. But for the most part, it'll be just like it normally is. As you guys know, I can only open one thing at a time on my IoT. So what my plan is to open the quiz in the morning, like at around 8 a.m., and just leave it open until like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I will close it out. So just make sure that you get in there and get that quiz done. And you access the quiz just like you do your homework. So I'm going to get started on chapter 14, which is the end of life, death, dying, grief, and loss. So on this one here, just remember that, death and dying is, death is a final stage of growth and development. It's part of life, and it is the extension of birth. As compared with the process of labor, there is a fear and the anxiety of the unknown with death, and the priority for the dying person is making sure that we meet their basic human needs. So we have two different, we have palliative care versus curative care. Palliative care is improve the quality of life by providing for relief of symptoms such as pain, nausea, anxiety, and depression, where curative care focuses on the recovery from one or more physical or emotional issues with the expectations of lengthening the lifespan. Another thing that we have to remember to take into consideration is how the culture, ethnicity, and religion influences people's attitudes towards death. So, their beliefs shape their attitudes towards death. Culture determines how one responds to death. Religion and spirituality help individual and family meet the challenging concepts related to death. And spiritual support may be expressed as compassionate care or specific religious practices or rituals. So the normal process of dying, they withdraw from the external environment. They may have visions and hallucinations. They'll have a loss of appetite, a change in their bowel and bladder function, changes in their vital signs, changes in their mental acuity, and fatigue and sleep. And on page 143, 144 of your book, there is a table 14-1 that has the nursing considerations care of the dying client, and it goes through all the different aspects of the normal processes of dying and considerations for nursing care of what we can do. There's also going to be changes in their sleep-wake pattern. There may be change in their pain levels, congestion in their throat or their lungs, and there can be skin changes. So the impact of death on the family unit. Often the family experiences stress more keenly than the dying client. There are efforts to appear hopeful and cheerful may confuse the dying client. Crying in front of the loved ones can be therapeutic. And, the thing of it is, too, what we have to remember with also, as adults, we should talk honestly and clearly with children about illness and death when it occurs. And children who are dying should also be told the truth and be allowed to ask questions. And then also the absence of advance directives can result in a sense of guilt if the family has to dictate life or death decisions. Another impact on the family unit is the family must handle everyday problems at a time often marked by shock, loneliness, and sadness. And occasionally the stress becomes difficult for families to handle, resulting in increased conflicts and outbursts of emotion or domestic violence. And we want to encourage, family members to get support from friends and neighbors. Co-workers, can also be a tremendous help for them. So, we want to encourage them to receive support in, all different ways possible for, to help support them through the. So, question, if the client has reached a stage of acceptance, family members may still be in the denial stage. True, because not all family members may be in the same stage as each other. Remember, everybody goes through the stages differently. So, and they're not like bookwork of this, that you're supposed to go through this stage and this stage, then this stage. Everyone goes through it a little bit differently. And we have to take that into consideration when we are interacting with clients and their family members. So, physical care, usually some form of treatment that can be observed and quantified. Emotional care relates to psychological support. Effects cannot be measured and may seem less immediately obvious than physical care, and equally important to the well-being of the client. So, for a person who is dying, meeting his self-actualization needs are of primary importance. Do you think that's true or false? It is false, because remember what I said at the beginning. We need to meet their basic human needs are the priority for the dying person. Kubler-Ross, her stages of grief and loss. This is all on page, let me find it, page 146, 147 to 148. Grief is coping with this physical and psychological pain, has a potential to heal and to strengthen those going through this process. Loss can include grief related to any emotional suffering, realization that one's personal ambitions will not or cannot be achieved. Those are all on page 145, not 145, 146 to 148. I want you guys to know the differences of the stages of dealing with grief and loss and the typical type of grief and loss response. Those are listed on page 147 in table 14-2. So if you guys can pay particularly attention to that, it would be very helpful, especially for your quizzes. And always remember, false hope or encouragement is generally not meaningful or helpful nursing actions. You just always remember, you do not want to give anybody false hope. Also, on page 146 of your book in box 14-1, it talks about traditional religious beliefs and practices related to death. Okay, there's a few here that I want you to know. And for the Amish, remember that family cares for the body. The funeral is often at home. Christian Science, a reader is called, they have no last rites, and an autopsy is forbidden. The Greek Orthodox, Roman Catholic, and Russian Orthodox all have mandatory baptism. So, on page 146, I want you to pay attention to the Amish, Christian Science, the Greek Orthodox, Roman Catholic, and the Russian Orthodox. And, like I said, the other thing I really want you to pay important attention to is the statements that indicate the client is in certain stages of, the dealing with grief and loss. So on page 147, like denial, the typical response is no, not me. Anger is why me. Bargaining, yes me, but if I could just live until. Depression is yes me. And acceptance is my time is close and it's okay. So, pay particularly attention to those types of responses and the different stages and just suggestions for the caregivers of what we can do in each one of those stages. And remember, as nurses, our role, in throughout the life cycle is to be understanding and supportive. So, that is all for chapter 14. I know that was pretty quick, but if you guys could just read through this chapter, and like I said, just pay particular attention to the types of responses that you would have in each one of the stages of dealing with grief and loss. That would be very helpful. Have a great week, guys. That wasn't very long. Oh crap. What time is it? That's not right.
No, it isn't. It's 3:09. I think 3:48. You have to get on that deal at 4.
Yes. How come I can't get to where I want? Oh.